Hi there, I'm John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, with part two of our special report with the Lounge Media Group covering the Carrier411 changes to their FreightGuard program. We're going to rehash what happened on our last video on part one. On October 1st, Carrier411 changed the FreightGuard reporting policy to ensure that reports remain permanently against a carrier's profile, either in an active or a deleted status if that is removed by the issuing broker. Carrier411 further enhanced the program by offering 16 new potential accusations on top of the original 12 that they had that brokers can use to report against carriers in the FreightGuard report format. And Carrier411 also appears to be actively taking steps to ensure that reputation management services nor brokers can ever secure a permanent removal of FreightGuard reports. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into part two. So in part two of our series, we're talking about a legal analysis that we have been seeing around the internet with regard to this story. We have been watching the opinions of industry experts and attorneys who have been posting left and right about this since this news first broke on October 1st. This news has been focusing on the intended and unintended liability and consequences that really ride between carriers, brokers, and Carrier411 themselves, and also look at the impact that Section 230 protections have for Carrier411. So getting into this, the experts do indicate and agree that that Carrier411 is moving down a dangerous path with eternal visibility of these reports. It really undermines the integrity of carriers. And we're speaking always throughout this report, we're speaking about carriers who are actually innocent of the accusations that are being lodged against them in FreightGuard reports. So please keep that in mind. But eternal visibility of a report for an innocent carrier threatens the foundation of trust that exists between brokers and carriers, and that foundation of trust is what is absolutely essential to proper functioning within the transportation industry. So reclassifying these freight guards, these fake and false freight guards, with eternal visibility can then tarnish an otherwise innocent and hardworking carrier. It also forces carriers or forces brokers to shut out quality carriers over what appear to be baseless claims. It also fosters an environment of fear, preventing carriers from seeking professional assistance for reputation management. This leads into a legal concept called tortious interference, where there is intentional harm inflicted upon another party's business relationships. And all this is geared back towards Carrier411. So by keeping the negative reports reclassified instead of actually deleting them altogether, Carrier411 then is intentionally undermining a carrier's ability to then secure contracts and disrupt their business operations. They are exercising improper purpose by failing to remove these unfounded reports. Now remember, it goes into deleted status when a broker goes to remove it. So if it still appears, even though a broker goes to remove it, it's still there. So the failure to remove those acts as improper purpose because it harms carriers' operational integrity without any justification whatsoever. It also causes carriers economic harm. To have these reports out there will then cause a carrier to have lost opportunities and revenue. And then brokers who then rely on these reports are then potentially inadvertently contributing to the economic distress of these carriers. Now, this is where things start getting interesting. Carrier 411 CEO Darren Brewer has been all along falling behind Section 320 protections under the Communications Decency Act in order to operate Carrier 411 platform. Now, this act and these protections basically allow for a platform to host third-party content and protects them from prosecution or any liability if that content is knowingly false. And we see that a lot in social media platforms all over the internet. Well, Carrier 411 has enjoyed these protections up to this point. The difference here is that Carrier 411 is now actively participating in shaping how the information is presented by not fully removing the content as the brokers go to delete it. Now, Carrier 411 is starting to gain liability in keeping that content posted on their site. They are encouraging then conduct that can cause them to be sued, because Section 230 was never intended to shield a company that was engaging in interference. The Carrier 411's policies are now creating an environment where false narratives, and again, we're talking about baseless freight guards, okay? But they're creating an environment where these false narratives can now continue to persist indefinitely, which not only leads to real harm for carriers, but as you're going to see in a few minutes, can also lead to real harm for brokers too. Now, there are some serious public policy concerns that are involved here because Section 230 protections have been cited many times by many social media platforms that are out there. By Carrier 411 trying to invoke these protections while actively shaping their platform and shaping the narrative of these statements, it sets a dangerous precedent. Because when a platform goes and maintains damaging content, it may now start to deal with the accountability of the liability from that content. So why does this matter in the long run? The transportation industry really thrives on trust and cooperation. You know, carriers and their dispatchers have to trust shippers and their brokers to make sure that the load is right, that the information is right, that everyone's getting paid properly. There has to be that level of trust. And negative freight guards that are false in nature then cause a complete erosion of that trust. It also causes a permanent stigmatization without a path for correction. If a carrier cannot get a false freight guard removed entirely, then this creates additional division by brokers having a strong arm impact against carriers at any time, and then fear among the carriers because the carriers are now subject to potential extortion by bad actors who have access to the Carrier 411 platform. This also can force carriers to focus on defending themselves from potential false narratives instead of actually trying to conduct business and operate their companies in a safe and effective manner. There are also some unintended consequences here for brokers, as I had mentioned before. First off, Carrier 411 claims that they have made these changes in order to protect their customers. What they don't indicate is the potential damages. Attorneys across the internet all agree that changes actually pose a material increase in liability exposure for brokers. Brokerages can be stuck with the implications of an inaccurate freight guard post indefinitely. And a curse of that could be a rogue agent who has access to Carrier 411 can go and post whatever they want about any carrier they want, claiming anything they want without management's knowledge. So it's very important that management at brokerages rein in capabilities of the rank and file agents within the brokerage from being able to file freight guards in the first place. Some of the consequences that exist for brokers, and these are potential consequences yet to be tested in court. Open-ended defamation and tort liability cases against brokers. Again, if the FreightGuard cannot be fully removed and it is proven to be absolutely false, then the broker or the carrier has absolutely no choice but to resort to legal remedies. There is no chance of mitigating a broker's liability whatsoever from damages that can incur because of inaccurate or false reports. And if a broker relies on their insurance to help protect them from such things, then they are also facing an increase in commercial liability insurance if their provider doesn't cancel their coverage. So these wide-ranging effects can hurt brokers, not necessarily protect them, as Carrier411 claims. And there are precedents in law to signify this. One of the attorneys that we researched had identified a case that they specifically had worked on where there was a judgment against a broker for a false FreightGuard posted by a rogue agent within the brokerage that resulted in a judgment against the broker for $480,000, including a $200,000 punitive damages claim. This is real detrimental money, especially for a medium or small brokerage that's out there. So continuing the use of Carrier411 has the potential to be a liability risk that each current subscriber for Carrier411 needs to evaluate very, very carefully for themselves. Now, responsible use of Carrier411 is possible. As I said back in the beginning, this is all predicated on a false report that's levied against the carrier. So if a broker is responsible in the way that they utilize these FreightGuard reports, I don't think you're going to find a lot of people pushing back on it. It's when there are false narratives in play that, frankly, with the latest changes, carriers do not have anything to lose but to move immediately towards lawsuits to try to defend themselves. So be as responsible as possible and exercise extreme caution when you decide that you want to use a FreightGuard, because flagrant use of any FreightGuard report will certainly cost the carrier just as dearly as it can cost even a broker. We are continuing our coverage on this topic with part 3 of this series, likely to air on Friday, October 4th. We're going to be talking in that part about tips for dispatchers and carriers to best represent yourselves so that you don't fall into the trap of the new accusations that are available under the FreightGuard program. We are also going to be live with a summary of these 3 parts on our show, Stop the Scam, on Monday at 5 p.m. Central. We are expecting Dale Prax of Freight Validate to be on the show to discuss some of the game-changing developments that exist. We would like for everyone to please be sure to like and subscribe on all social media platforms for our podcast, Stop the Scam, as well as the Lounge Media Group. Stop the Scam does air live on Mondays, 5 p.m. Central Time on all Lounge Media Group social media outlets. If you ever run into a fraudulent situation and you need assistance, and that's if you are a carrier or a broker, you can always reach out to me, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, at jcantera@vigilanttransport.com, or my co-host, Kate Price, at kprice@rockdovefs.com. Special thanks and credit goes out to Dale Prax, owner of Freight Validate, who helped contribute to this report, as well as to Dan Arteyev Esquire, managing partner of Arteyev at Law. Until next time, folks, please, whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride.